2024. It was responding to a letter that we received from the National Assembly requesting us to furnish the National Assembly with information on the investigation that we conducted on the long-lasting insecticide nets, and to indicate in our responses any outcome or status of the investigation that we did conduct.
So your letter in that volume relates to procurement of certain items at KEMSA, am I correct?
You are correct.
You've appraised the Senate, the National Assembly in that letter. Would you appraise the Senate on its contents?
The content is the procurement of long-lasting insecticides by KEMSA. This was in the year 2023, and the Commission, in its functions, either it conducts investigation on its own motion or at the instigation of other parties. For this particular investigation, we did receive a letter from the CS, who was then in charge of the Ministry of Health, indicating that there were certain irregularities in a procurement of insecticide nets by the KEMSA, and the CS then wanted us to conduct investigation and find out whether certain procurement irregularities did take place. And from that, we actually did carry out investigation, and the outcome of the investigation so far is already reflected in the letter that we have provided.
And what was the outcome of the investigations, Mr. Mahmood?
There were serious procurement challenges that affected that particular tender. The major one was change of specifications to suit a company called Shobika Impex Limited, which was having which had a local agent by the name Crystal Kenya Limited that had the sole responsibility, or rather the sole function, to provide certain mosquitoes that had certain chemicals. So basically what the investigation concluded is that there are two types of chemicals that were used on these particular nets. If I may read one of them, one is called Synergist piperolene butoxide, PBO, long-lasting insecticides nets, while the other one is pyrethroid long-lasting insecticide nets. So this company had the sole distribution rights on this particular chemical called PBO. And in totality, from the investigation, we realized that the PS at that particular time did write to the CEO of KEMSA, instigating, or rather compelling the CEO of KEMSA to change the specifications so that it can fit the chemical that was to be provided by Shobika Impex Limited, whose local agent was Crystal Kenya Limited. Basically, that was the starting point. The other problem was that there was, when the tender was to close on 23rd, the company, this is Shobika Impex Limited, at that particular time wanted to have a bid bond introduced into the documents, into the tender documents. Yet we all know that in procurement, the tender document, the bid bond is supposed to be part of the tender document. They're supposed to be delivered together. But in this circumstance, the bid bond was delivered by hand to the CEO's office on 23rd, when the tender was supposed to close. So they had to find a way of extending the period of closure up to 10th of the next month of March, so that that particular bid bond which had issues can now be factored in, or rather regularized, and so that this company called Shobika could benefit out of that particular extension. Of course, there are many other issues. Like, we also realized that at the end of the, when the tender was discontinued, for example, there is a company called Tianjin Yorkol International Trading Company that was among the bidders that initially bidded for this particular tender. They were disqualified on a fact that they were not authorized by a manufacturer. This company had provided sufficient evidence and proof that they're actually manufacturers. So a company that is a manufacturer was disqualified on the ground that they did not provide authorization from a manufacturer, yet they are actually manufacturers. So those are some of the challenges that the tender had. And
at the end of it all, what became of this tender?
At the end of what happened is, after the technical committee of the KEMSA did recommend Shobika to be awarded the tender, because this tender was actually was being financed by Global Fund. So the agreement was, after the tender evaluation committee's report is done, that report is to be handed over to Global Fund, the financiers. So when that report was surrendered or handed over to the Global Fund realized...
You said the evaluation committee of KEMSA
yes,
made a recommendation that Shobika be awarded.
That was the finding. That was
the finding of KEMSA.
That was the recommendation by the technical committee.
What happened next?
What happened is Global Fund decided to terminate the tender and asked an internal firm, or rather an internal organization called Wombo.org, which is the procuring arm of Global Fund, to do the procurement. And eventually, one of the companies that were actually disqualified because they were not authorized by a manufacturer ended up winning that tender, together with another firm called A to Z Textile Mills Limited. So those were the eventual winners, but that was after the termination of the recommendation by the technical committee of KEMSA.
So, just to clarify to the Senate, a company that had been disqualified by KEMSA ended up being the supplier.
That is correct.
Following the process which was undertaken by Global Fund.
That is correct.
Okay. What became of the bid bond?
Well, when we were investigating this, when the investigation was ongoing, we collected all the bid bonds of the firms that actually bidded, so that not only the bid bonds, but all the documents that related to the tender, so that we could evaluate and record statements. Now, the one that had issues was this one for Shobika. But when the tender was terminated, ordinarily, there would be no need to hold onto tenders or onto documents submitted by the tenderers, and they're usually returned. But for this particular one, because it was a questioned document, the CEO of KEMSA wrote to the ESCC requesting for that document to be handed over. And eventually we did hand over the document to him after recommending disciplinary action against all the officers who were involved in the tendering process, starting with the CEO, the technical committee members, the head of procurement entity. For this particular document, we have a certified copy, which we collected in case there would be need to reopen the investigation, because there could have been other offenses that could, come out of the investigation.
Did you hand over the bid bonds for the other companies which had participated in this?
They were returned to KEMSA.
They were returned to KEMSA. Yeah. Let's go to the second issue, which was identified in your invite, and probably we should start with the third one, which relates to conflict of interest by state officers and public officers. You are a long-serving officer of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. I suppose you are familiar with conflict of interest in terms of the constitutional, statutory, and regulatory procedures. Would you appraise the Senate on that aspect?
Okay, thank you. So conflict of interest is actually addressed under Section 16 of the Leadership and Integrity Act, and it clearly states that a state officer or a public officer shall use the best efforts to avoid being in a situation where personal interests conflict or appear to conflict with the state officers or public officers' official duties. Now, when we talk of personal interest, we look at Section 6, which explains or rather indicates that personal interest includes interest of spouse, child, business associates, agents, or any other matter in which the state officer or public officer has a direct or indirect pecuniary interest. Basically, in practice, what happens is we also have the regulation, which is the subsidiary law of that particular act. If we look at the conflict of interest, that particular part 3 of the leadership and integrity regulations clearly specifies how conflict of interest are supposed to be dealt with by public officers.
And in summary, how are state officers to deal with questions of conflict?
All public institutions are actually required to maintain a conflict of interest registers, which can be inspected by individuals upon application. That is the starting point. If, for example, a public officer or a state officer feels that he is conflicted, he is supposed to declare the conflict in that particular register. And the commission also has a role in that the commission is actually mandated to enforce and implement the Leadership and Integrity Act together with the regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Mahmood. And did I hear you correctly say that conflict of interest extends to children, spouses, and business associates? Did I hear you correctly?
That is correct. That is subsection 6, section 16.
Let's go to the third issue in view of time, which is in relation to gifts.
Okay, gifts. If you look at section 14 of the Leadership and Integrity Act, together with section 5 of the regulations of the same act, it is clearly indicated that gifts received by a public officer is a donation to the state. That is what Regulation 5 indicates. If you go down there, you'll also see that a state officer or public officer who receives a gift whose value exceeds 20,000 Kenya shillings shall, within 48 hours of reporting to the office, surrender it to the public entity in which the officer is employed. It also goes further in subsection 4 to indicate that a state officer or a public officer who receives a gift in terms of this regulation shall, irrespective of the monetary value of the gift, declare the gift received to public entity which the public officer represents. Finally,
all gifts are supposed to be declared regardless of its monetary value.
Yeah, maybe, yes, that is correct. But what I maybe should have mentioned is that public officers and state officers are barred to receive any monetary gift. So here we are dealing with gifts that are not non-monetary. For monetary, they are bad, or rather we are bad from receiving any monetary gift. But yeah, so.
And in the same manner, with respect to conflict of interest, we have a register of conflict of interest. Do we have a register of gifts?
Yes, we have a register of benefits in each and every public agency where officers who receive gifts are supposed to declare immediately, and we have indicated in 48 hours. And what I would also wish to mention is that
what is the role of the Commission in relation to gifts?
Okay. Yeah, now if you look at subsection 9 of the regulations, you will see that a public entity shall at the close of every financial year furnish the Commission with a report specifying and all the gifts, any gift the entity intends to dispose of, all that. And then subsection 3, of course, talks about report. The report under paragraph 1 shall be submitted to the Commission within 30 days after the close of the financial year.
So just so that we can close on that, every financial year, the Commission is supposed to receive the registers of gifts from all state entities.
That is correct.
For your record.
Yeah.
Have you received the register of gifts from the Office of the Deputy President?
Not to my knowledge.
Not to your knowledge. That will be all, Mr. Speaker.
Counsel for the Deputy President, you may now proceed to cross-examine the witness.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'll be very brief with you. You did receive the summons this morning, yes?
I received the summons yesterday afternoon.
And you are to come and testify in respect to what aspect in the motion of impeachment?
There were 3 items,
Yeah.
which I listed.
Kindly grab your notice of impeachment, the motion.
The motion.
Yeah, the motion of impeachment at volume 1 of the National Assembly.
If you insist.
And as you do so, kindly again repeat or state the thematic areas you are supposed to testify in respect to.
So let me start off by looking at the summons which I received yesterday. So the first one, the investigation of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission of tender. The number is given there.
Thank you. Now let's go to that particular tender. What is the grievance in the notice of motion with respect to that tender? What is the mover of the motion aggrieved with?
Which
In
page?
respect to the tender you're testifying.
Which page? You can.
What is the mover of the motion aggrieved with in respect to this tender of KEMSA? It's a simple question. You don't need to refer.
But I need to refer to the document, isn't it? So that I can read the exact.
It's okay. You can be led by your counsel.
Yeah.
You know the motion better than the witness who's been brought to test on a particular aspect. If you can just take him there so that
Let's go to
we save on time.
Just tell me the page, I'll be able to.
you page 24.
Page 24.
Yes.
Page 24.
You reckon that the mover is aggrieved by indicating that the deputy president bullied him and exerted unnecessary pressure in respect to this tender, correct?
As per the document, yes.
That is the position, correct?
That is what is captured here, but that is not part of my evidence.
That is not part of your evidence. Yeah. Does your evidence relate to the notice of motion, to the notice of impeachment before this assembly?
It does, but
is there a complaint in the notice of impeachment that relates to conflict of interest that you know of?
And so what I would really request you, let us deal with my evidence.
Yes,
Don't take me to the evidence.
We are
of other
dealing with it.
witnesses.
Is there a complaint that relates to conflict of interest in the notice of motion? If yes, kindly point it out for the assembly to note.
No, I wouldn't know because I haven't gone through the whole.
You have not gone through the motion.
The whole motion, I haven't.
Is there a complaint that relates to gifts and how gifts must be dealt with?
I want to.
Do you know or you do not know, Mr.
I
Witness?
do not know.
You do not know.
Yes.
Now, in respect to this tender, are you aware that this Senate sat and conducted an independent investigation in that respect?
I'm not even aware.
Are you aware?
I'm only aware of the investigation EACC conducted.
Yeah. So in respect to this motion that is before the assembly, what investigation did you conduct that relates to the gift in this assembly?
I was requested to talk about.
We are talking about
gifts.
the notice of impeachment before the assembly, Mr. Witness.
I'm referring to the summons that I was given by this House.
And your summons must relate to the proceedings, correct?
I'm not the originator of the summons. How would I know how it relates? I will confine myself to the summons. And there are 3 issues I was to address. One of them is gifts.
How many companies bidded in that particular process?
I think there were about 17.
There were about 17.
Yes.
Did all the bids pass?
Pass in terms of award.
Yes.
Finally, the award was given to 2 companies.
Yes. Which companies were they?
Let me get the names. Yeah, the 2 companies that eventually won after the Global Fund conducted their own tender.
Yes.
One is called Tianjin Yerkol International Trading Company
Mr.
Limited.
Witness. Yes.
The other one is A to Z.
Do you know what led to the cancellation of the tender?
I know.
Yes, what led to the cancellation of the tender?
There was direct favorism to Shobika.
It was direct favorism to Shobika.
And you know.
Please get hold of the volume 3 of the documents by the Deputy President.
Sorry?
You get hold of volume 3.
Council, you may assist me.
Volume 3 of our bundle of documents. And as soon as you get it, you go to page 221. Volume 3, page 221, Mr. Witness.
Just a minute.
And as soon as you grab it, you go to paragraph 100.
Which page?
Page 221.
221.
Paragraph 100. Volume 3.
221. Just 1 minute.
Let me assist you with my bundle because we want to save time. Page 221.
Which
Look
paragraph?
at paragraph 100.
Paragraph 100. Yes, I'm there.
Yes, paragraph 100.
I'm there.
Yes, can you read what the report indicates?
In its report, dated 25th April 2023, Global Fund noted that KEMSA had failed to apply the evaluation criteria consistently to all bidders and that none of the bidders met the minimum requirements.
So what is indicated that none of the bidders met the minimum requirement? Yes. Let's go to page 221, 222.
Now,
22. At paragraph 106.
222.
And again, read it loudly.
Notwithstanding KEMSA's reservations, in a letter dated 4th May 2023, the Acting Director of Procurement recommended termination of the process. The CEO approved, and on 5th May 2023, the termination was communicated.
What
to all the
was
bidders.
terminated?
The process.
The process of bidding, correct?
Yes.
Why was it terminated?
Now,
Paragraph 100, Mr. Witness,
no,
paragraph
Counsel,
100.
Counsel, look.
You know, I am
I'm
cross-examining
I will
you.
only deal with my evidence. I will not deal with the evidence of other institutions. The Senate is an independent institution. The EACC
That we know.
conducted its own investigation. Please ask me questions related to the investigation.
Now, after making
by
your
EACC.
statement, please read the reason why the termination was actuated
If
at
you
paragraph 100.
If you want me just to read for the sake of it, but I'm not owning this evidence. I'm only owning the evidence by EACC.
I didn't ask you to own it.
Yeah.
Witness, the council is asking you to read a certain paragraph.
Okay.
Just read it.
Guided.
Yes?
Which paragraph?
I have asked you to read paragraph 106, correct?
Yes.
About the terminations, correct?
Yes.
And I've asked you to state for the assembly the reasons why the terminations is being recommended, correct?
Yes.
And I've told you that that answer, you'll find it at page 221, paragraph 100, correct?
Correct.
And that the bidding was terminated because the bids failed to meet the minimal requirements, correct?
Correct.
And therefore, the cancellation was not as the result of your alleged favorism, correct?
That is not my evidence. My evidence is
Yes, I
there
know.
was clear favorism.
Clear favorism.
Yeah.
Look at paragraph 226, sorry, page 226.
226, I'm there.
Yes? Look at paragraph 136.
I'm there.
Yeah? Read paragraph 136.
In late April 2023, he learned from the Global Fund.
Who is this learning from Global Funds?
Oh, you just took me there straight.
Yeah, look at paragraph 225 so that we can get to know who is learning.
235 or 2?
Yeah, 225.
225.
That is the evidence by one Dr. Andrew Mulwa, acting CEO KEMSA, correct?
Now, 225, 125, if you...
225.
220.
Up here.
Which paragraph?
Up here.
Yeah, submissions by Dr. Andrew Mulwa, acting
Yes.
CEO.
So what is he saying now at paragraph 136?
136, in April 2023, he learned from Global Fund pre-award review report that the long-lasting insecticide nets tender was to be cancelled on account of inconsistencies in the bid evaluation.
Yes?
Yes,
So why was it cancelled?
the issue would be who caused the bid.
No, it's not who
Inconsistency.
caused. We are looking at the report. What does it indicate at that paragraph, the issues of the cancellation?
Paragraph 136,
Yes.
on account of
It
inconsistencies.
speaks to the fact that the bid or the tender was cancelled, correct?
It does, yes.
And it speaks to the reason that it was cancelled on the basis or on the reason of inconsistency, correct?
Correct.
And therefore, your testimony that it was a result of favorism does not sit well with the evidence contained at paragraph 136 of the bundle, correct?
This, my evidence.
No, I just want you to limit yourself to that paragraph vis-a-vis what you stated. That the reason for the cancellation was the inconsistency, Mr. Witness, yes?
Inconsistencies, yes, but.
Thank you. Let's go
how
on.
is the inconsistency?
Let us go
How
to
does
that
it
one. You
arise?
shall explain in another forum, not here.
Yeah. Continue.
Let's go to paragraph 230, to page 230.
Page 230.
Yes?
Which paragraph?
230.
Which paragraph?
Paragraph G.
G, yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Can you read it out?
At the evaluation stage, the audit team established that only 2 bidders passed the preliminary evaluation and proceeded to the technical evaluation, that is bidder number 3, Tianjin and Coal International.
Which two companies passed?
As per this one, Tianjin and Coal
Yes?
International,
Yes?
bidder number 7,
Yes?
Premier Movers Limited, contrary to evaluation committee.
Is Shobika part of those bidders?
No, it's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
Look at look at page 231 again, paragraph J.
231.
Page 231, paragraph J.
Paragraph J, yes.
Yes? Read J.
The termination of the tender complied with Section 62 of the Act and Global Fund guidelines.
So the termination was lawful, correct? And it complied with the Procurement Act, correct or not correct, Mr. Witness?
Correct.
Correct. Let us look at page 246.
246.
Yes, page 246, paragraph 213.
246.
Paragraph 213.
213, yes.
Yes, what is the report indicating?
Following the cancellation of the tender at KEMSA, TNT placed an order of 10.2 million nets on wombo.org website, and procurement was subsequently done in line with the technical specifications provided by the Ministry of Health.
So the nets were eventually procured, correct or not correct?
They were eventually procured.
And it took the interventions of global funds to procure them, correct?
Correct.
And that you'll look at paragraph 215, yes?
Yes, I'm there.
Read it out.
Further, prior to the cancellation of the tender, differences arose between Global Fund team and the immediate former PS, State Department of Public Health, and professional standards with regard to the operations and ongoing at the DNPM Ministry of Health. It was noted that these differences...
It was noted that these differences may have played a role in the final decision by global funds to terminate the tender processes, correct?
Correct.
Did that have anything to do with the Deputy President? According to the statement you've just read? It has nothing to do with the Deputy President. Let us now finally answer your issues at page 271. 271.
Page.
Yes, and read loudly paragraph 24 and 25.
271. Paragraph
24 and 25.
The committee, that is 24, the committee observed that following the termination of the tender, while there was no apparent loss of public funds.
Just read it loudly.
The committee observed that following the termination of the tender, while there was no apparent loss of public funds,
there was no apparent loss of?
KEMSA lost USD 455,589.4, approximately 70 million in procurement fees.
The report from the Senate indicates there was no loss of public funds, correct?
Let me read this paragraph again so that we are
yes,
together.
Proceed.
The committee observed that following the termination of the tender, while there was no apparent loss of public funds,
just put a full stop there. Pause. What has the committee observed?
You don't want me to finish the sentence?
Yes, I'll lead you to that other part.
Okay.
What has the committee observed?
No public funds lost.
No public funds lost. In your investigations, separate investigations that you conducted, did you arrive at the same conclusion? Did you or did you not?
There was no public funds lost.
There was no public funds lost.
Terminated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let us look at paragraph 25.
25, yes.
Yes, read it out.
The committee observed that the cancellation of the tender appeared to have been influenced by Global Fund's apparent effort to exert significant control over the procurement process from the beginning to the end.
Thank you. What occasioned the cancellation?
The cancellation of the tender appeared to have been influenced by the Global Fund's apparent effort to exert significant control over the procurement process.
Is there any evidence indicating that the Deputy President was involved in that process?
No.
Was his companies involved?
No.
Was his family involved?
No.
Any evidence that you have before this assembly to that respect?
The evidence I have.
No. Any evidence that any of them were involved?
On this report? Or my evidence?
This report.
On this report, no, but my evidence is.
Let us go to the next paragraph, yeah? This concluded that Global Funds teams based in Geneva, Switzerland, making multiple trips to Nairobi, Kenya, at least 3 times during the relevant period, raising concerns about the autonomy and the ability of the local government. Just read it out.
That is paragraph 25?
Yes, the same paragraph.
Okay. The committee observed that cancellation of the tender appeared to have been influenced by Global Fund's apparent effort to exert significant control over the procurement process from the beginning to the end. This included Global Fund team based in Geneva, Switzerland, making multiple trips to Nairobi, Kenya, at least 3 times during the relevant period, raising concerns about the autonomy and the ability of the local government agencies.
The autonomy of the organization, correct? Let us look at paragraph 222 again. Sorry, page 222. Page 222, Mr. Witness.
222.
And while you get there, you look at paragraph 105, 107. Page 222.
Paragraph
107. Would you kindly read it out?
107. It is further her testimony that, I don't know whose testimony this is.
Yeah. That is a testimony of the submissions of Terry Ramathani, immediate CEO.
Okay.
Yes, you find that at page 219. Yeah, but now I'm interested in paragraph 107.
It was further her testimony that the authority had struggled to maintain its autonomy
The authority has struggled to maintain its autonomy, yes,
owing to the undue influence
owing to undue interference
interference by the cabinet secretary
from the Cabinet Secretary for Health, yes, POS. Who was the Cabinet Secretary for Health at the time in issue?
Oh, we can check that one.
Yeah, who was? This
don't-
regime has only had two
me-
Cabinet Secretaries.
Let me just confirm from my records here. Because she did a letter to us, so
Council Njiru.
the name is
Just hold on, witness.
this is
Hold
Wafula.
on, Mr. Abdi.
Yeah, sir.
Council Njiru.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
I thought when you're cross-examining a witness, you cross-examine on the evidence they've given. You
No.
totally abandoned his evidence.
Those are not the rule of cross-examination, Mr. Speaker, sir. I respectfully beg
Because,
to
you know,
differ.
the reason why the witness has difficulties.
He doesn't have difficulties in the
No,
speaker.
he has. He has.
No,
I've seen
I
him.
am asking him to read. Okay, I will
Can
be guided.
Proceed, if that's your line of argument, proceed.
Thank you for giving the latitude. Who was the Cabinet Secretary at the time the bid was being cancelled?
She's Nakumicha
Nakumicha.
S. Wafula.
Has the Senate found that what occasioned all these cancellations of these tenders was the loss of the autonomy of KEMSA?
I would want to confine myself to my evidence.
I know, at this
I
time
wouldn't
we wish
want to
to.
talk about the evidence.
Okay, then read that paragraph. Just read for me.
Which paragraph?
Paragraph 107. And I want to finish up with you.
Okay. Paragraph 107, it was further her testimony that the authority had struggled to maintain its autonomy owing to the undue interference from the Cabinet Secretary for Health. For instance, she stated that on 22nd March 2023, she received a note from the CS asking her to assist a certain Mr. Ken Ogola.
She received a note from the CS asking the CEO to assist one Ken Ogola, correct?
As per this statement, yes.
Have you seen any company associated with the Deputy President being accused of these interferences?
No?
Let's go to your bundle as I finish up, volume 8A. Any evidence from volume 8A that you've brought that links
That?
the Deputy President's company to the cancellation of the tender?
Yes.
Look at your paragraph, look at your letter dated 23rd September. Your letter dated 23rd September, and look at the recommendations.
Yes.
What are you recommending?
We are recommending for admin action against the KEMSA officials and the Ministry of Health officials. There is a pending issue.
It's okay. I want you to limit yourself to what I am asking in that respect.
Yes.
You are recommending administrative action to KEMSA officials.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct. But the file is
In
still
that particular paragraph, any recommendation for the prosecution of the company in issue? In that particular paragraph?
the file is still open.
It's
but
okay.
As per these recommendations,
You
no.
brought the documents here. We are dealing with what you have brought, not what you have in the
Yes.
office.
Yes.
Any recommendation in respect of that company?
No.
Thank you. Let us go to a letter dated 21st August, correct?
Of my bundles?
Of your bundles.
By who?
The EACC bundles, the one that you're just looking at. Okay. Don't leave volume 8A. You can see the letter dated 21st August, correct?
Just a minute. I get the letter. 21st August, yes.
Can you see the recommendation at
Yes.
page 7?
Yes.
What are you recommending?
We are recommending for the investigation established that the Chief Executive Officer at KEMSA, Terry Ramadhani, failed to ensure compliance with the procurement processes and the law, contrary to Section 44 of the PPDA Act.
That Ramathani was in breach of the law, correct?
Correct.
A person who is in breach of the law, what happens to him or her?
There are many ways of dealing with that. We can charge.
The law sanctions that act, correct?
Exactly.
Do you know what sanction was given to Terry?
I wouldn't know, but
Do you know that she's now currently the ambassador to New Delhi?
that was not our expectation. We
I know.
expected administrative action taken against the lady.
So, did any person, either the chief executive officer, report to you that he has received any intimidation, harassment, bullying from
No.
the office of the deputy president?
No.
Yeah?
No.
Did you receive any
not
complaint?
Not to EACC.
Did you receive any complaint?
No.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Witness, finally, where do you place your evidence in these proceedings?
In these proceedings, I place my evidence on the conflict of interest bit.
Conflict of interest.
Which I said, personal interest.
It's okay that you said,
of a
and,
state
and
of-
I understand the law.
Allow me to finish, please.
So show me in the notice of motion, I put it to you, that in the notice of motion, there is no charge as against the deputy president for conflict of interest. Does that surprise you, that there is no such a charge?
It doesn't.
Thank you. No further questions.
Counsel for the National Assembly, you may re-examine the witness.
Now, Mr. Witness, only one more question. Between your statement that you have made and the Senate's report, which one do you want us to rely on?
I want
Which one? There are only two options. It's either your report or the report by the Senate. Don't give me an explanation.
I can
Mr.
stand by my report.
So we disregard the report by the Senate, correct?
I didn't tell you that. I didn't
So
say that.
we disregard the report by the Senate. Is that the
I can
contempt
only,
that you
I
have
can
for this
only
House?
stand by my evidence, which I can prove in any forum.
Has that report by the Senate indicated any investigations on the ground of favorism, conflict of interest, and gifts?
No, I haven't gone through the report, so I wouldn't want to
Counsel,
comment.
Thank
Zero. Are you done?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, but you're addressing me.
Are you done?
Yes, I am done.
Take your seat.
I'm also obliged.
Mr. Speaker, I believe I had around 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
Go to counsel. Now, I'm afraid, counsel, your time is up. However, you have 2 hours to cross-examine the deputy president. That's where you can borrow from.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to borrow 10 minutes in respect of this witness.
Laura, proceed.
Mr. Mahmood, do you still have the bundle of volume 3?
Yes.
Do you still have volume 3 from the, it's a bigger volume than that.
Yeah?
It's a bigger volume.
Oh.
Let me take you to page 236 of that report. Of that bundle, sorry.
$236.
236.
Yes, I'm there.
You're there.
Yes.
Go to paragraph 188 and inform
Yes,
the Senate
I'm there.
what the Senate stated in that report, in that paragraph.
So 188, at the financial evaluation, the evaluation committee, the following bidders, the evaluation committee, I think there's a word missing, the following bidders for award. Item 001, that is mosquito nets treated, rectangular polythene. Number 1 is Shobika Impex Private Limited. Piece.
So bidder number 2, Shobika Impex Private Limited, was recommended for award at a price of USD 9 million.
Correct.
So there was indeed a recommendation by the evaluation committee for an award to Shobika Impex.
Correct.
And it is contained in the report of the Senate.
Correct.
Confirm also that what you've been taken through by my learned friend are the various testimonies of the witnesses who appeared before the Senate. And those testimonies ran from page 202 all the way to page 265. Is that correct?
202, yes. That's correct.
So what council has done is to give you the various contestations by the witnesses who came before the Senate. Is that correct?
Correct.
What is important is the recommendations and the observations of the Senate, which is contained in pages 266 to 274.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
And allow me to just highlight 3 of the observations which were taken out by the Senate. Look at page 267. Page 267, under the rubric
Yes. Which
in
paragraph?
regards to the tender specifications.
Which paragraph?
Page 267, title B.
Title B, in regard to the tender specifications.
The Senate picked out the tender specifications as an issue, which emerged, correct?
Correct.
Go to page 268.
I'm there.
They also picked out the issue of extension of the tender.
Yes.
And in particular, read to the Senate, paragraph 16(1). Paragraph 16(1).
1. The sequence of events leading to the extension appeared solicited and mischievous
As evidenced by
the following.
The Senate is saying that the extension appeared solicited and mischievous, and they then go ahead to give reasons.
Yes.
6 reasons, actually,
Sure. Yes.
hyphenated. And then they also pick out under D the manner in which KEMSA evaluated the tender. Is that correct?
Correct.
So this report of the Senate rhymes with your observations in all material respects. Is that not so?
Correct.
At paragraph E, the Senate then discusses the process which led to cancellation. It's titled cancellation of the tender. Is that correct?
Correct.
And they say that though there was no loss of funds, KEMSA lost 70 million shillings
Yes.
in procurement fees.
Yeah. Paragraph 24. Yes.
So in all material respects, this report rhymes with the report of the EACC.
That is correct.
And there is no reason for you to disown it. You've also been told that conflict of interest is not an issue which has been raised by the mover of the motion.
Correct.
To the best of your knowledge, does the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Act, Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, have a clause on conflict of interest and makes it an offense?
Yeah, it does. The Leadership and Integrity Act also does. Yeah.
I will identify to the Senate during my submissions the relevant section which is contained in the motion. Thank you, Mr. Mahmood. And we wish to close with this witness, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you. We will now move to allow honorable senators to ask questions or seek clarifications. Starting with the senator for Nairobi City County. Senator Eddy.
Mr. Speaker, I've got two quick clarification questions, one from the witness and then one from the counsel who cross-examined the witness. Mr. Abdi, you have indicated to this Senate that eventually of all the 17 companies that did bid for this tender, all of them eventually got all their bid bonds and documents back. However, the witness that appeared before us, called Mr. Mulwa, indicated that on the 11th of July 2023, he received a phone call from the Deputy President to be able to come and collect the bid bond for Shobika, specifically from EACC. I want to know, when did the other 16 companies get their bid bonds from EACC? Did they get it at the same date that the former witness indicated that he waited for 5 hours from EACC, or did they get them from EACC at a variable date? Then lastly, Mr. Speaker, the counsel for the Deputy President has heavily relied on the Senate report. And if you look at page 218 all the way to page 230, it is submissions to Senate by different individuals. Counsel, do submissions itemized by individuals who appeared before Senate in your best understanding amount to Senate's finding and resolutions in your best understanding? And what do you make of page 275 of Senate recommendations and not findings? Because you did indicate to this House that those were Senate findings. Are they findings or are they submissions of individuals to the Senate of Kenya? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mungatana.
Asante sana Bwana Spika. Swali langu kwa mshahidi. Umeelezea bunge la Senate ya kwamba wafanyikazi wa serikali hawakubaliwi kuchukua pesa kama zawadi. Lakini wafanyikazi wa serikali wanakubaliwa kuchukua zawadi aina ingine. Na tena ukasema katika EACC kuna orodha ambayo mnaorodhesha kila kitu ambacho kinachukuliwa na mfanyikazi yoyote wa serikali. Tunajua kwamba makamu wa rais amekuwa mbele ya Kenya nzima akasema amepata ng'ombe kutoka kwa marafiki zake wa bonde la Ufa kama zawadi. Mimi nataka kukuuliza na uelezee hii bunge yetu ya Senate. Je, uko na orodha ya yote ya hizo ng'ombe za maziwa ambazo zilipatikana, ambazo anasema aliziorodhesha? Hiyo ndio swali yangu kwako. Asante.
Senator Jesang Alan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have two questions that I would like to ask the Council of His Excellency, the Deputy President, to tell the House why was it the Deputy President calling the CEO of KEMSA asking for a release of the bid bond and not the CEO of Crystal Company, yet he's not an employee or a director of the said company. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I equally want to ask the Council of the Deputy President to enlighten me and prove to this House that on how the call by the Deputy President to the CEO of KEMSA pertaining a bid bond that was in process of a contract, not a conflict of interest. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to ask the Council if the Deputy President knows that he's not a regional leader, but a national leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Fatuma Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the DP's counsel. Now, I saw you trying to cross-examine the witness before us on a report of the Senate, which I believe he has not interacted with. And again, the motion that was before the House and also the National Assembly. What are you trying to drive out of that? I thank you.
Senator Joyce Korir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. My question is, I wanted to know what informed the extension of time, the change of dates from the extension of time from during the procurement process. Thank you.
Senator Karungo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My question to Mr. Abdi. You receive a letter from the Health Ministry on 11th May 2023. Then in your wisdom, you replied 16 months later, when the CS has even left the office. My question, and that is 5 months after the Senate looks into the issue and comes with a report. Are you part of the conspiracy? Don't answer me, answer your children.
Senator Sigei.
Honorable Speaker, the question I intended to ask has already been asked by my colleague, Senator Mogatana, so I do not need to waste the time.
Senator Kibwana. And honorable senators, you know, when you're given an opportunity to seek clarification or ask a question, it is not a moment to get a TikTok clip. Please, this is a very serious matter. Proceed. Let us not embarrass this House. Proceed, Senator Hamida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to Mr. Abdi, I just wanted a clarification whether EACC, when EACC conducts their investigation, are they guided by other investigations? Because through the cross-examination, I think it was vis-a-vis the parliament investigation. So I think these are two different investigations. So I wanted that clarification, whether you are guided by Parliament, because the Parliament are not experts. That's why we always bring in or loop in EACC to assist us with the investigation. Number two, would you call it a bribe if a gift is not declared, you know, or gifts in a public office? Would you call it a bribe? Just the last one to the council. How do you cross-examine what someone came and said, but not exactly specific findings of the Senate? Because I found it a bit contradicting. Because the resolutions of the Senate is based on committee's observation, and recommendations, but not investigations. Thank you.
Senator Kathuri.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, mine is not to the council or to the witness, but to the remarks which has been given out here by Senator Karungo Dhango. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether you heard what he said, and I do not associate myself as a senator, honorable senator, with those remarks to a witness appearing before the Senate, that please don't answer me, answer your children. Mr. Speaker, that should be expunged from the records of the Senate and from the answer, Honorable Speaker.
Order, Honorable Senators. Senator Karungo, that is unparliamentary and totally out of order. Proceed.
Sisters with the investigation. Number two, would you call it a bribe if a gift is not declared, or gifts in a public office? Would you call it a bribe? Just the last one to the council. How do you cross-examine what someone came and said, but not exactly specific findings of the Senate? Because I found it a bit contradicting. Because the resolutions of the Senate is based on committees' observation and recommendations, but not investigations. Thank you.
Senator Kathuri.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, mine is not to the council or to the witness, but to the remarks which has been given out here by Senator Karungo Dhango. Mr. Speaker,
But
I don't know whether you heard what he said, and I do not associate myself as a senator, honorable senator, with those remarks to a witness appearing before the Senate, that please don't answer me, answer your children. Mr. Speaker, that should be expunged from the records of the Senate and from the answer, Honorable Speaker.
Order, Honorable Senators. Senator Karungo, that is unparliamentary and totally out of order. Proceed to retract that statement, failure to which the chair will rule.
Mr. Speaker, as I withdraw, this session is viewed by everybody. At home, our children too. Mr. Speaker.
Senator Karungo, I never give you an opportunity to make a speech. Retract or you allow me to make a ruling.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, I retract.
Take your seat.
I withdraw, and please answer me.
Take your seat, Senator Karungo, please. Senator Keroche Tabitha.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity. And as a mother, I think I've also felt I'm hurt with Senator Karungo. But because it has been ruled, thank you. We should never, ever. I know we had a meeting, closed door meeting before we started this. And we all agreed we are going to behave. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Proceed to seek clarification.
Mine is to the Abdi. My question is to the Abdi on whatever you're trying to do on the procurement irregularities. But my question is, are you doing to the others, because there are a lot of complaints on the procurement departments in all the ministries. So I hope this continues to everywhere. Thank you.
Senator Richard Onyonka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to ask Mr. Abdi this question. In your observation, maybe in just a paragraph, what do you interpret happened about this tender from its inception, in terms of the procurement, in terms of the management of the exercise and the conclusion, as an officer whose responsibility is actually to investigate if there was any breakage of the law and if necessary, make recommendation to the DPP. What conclusion did you reach when you were analyzing this matter? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Karen Nyamu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Dr. Mulwa, before this House, implicated the Deputy President in a scandal of the 3.7 billion KEMSA deal. In your own investigation, can you corroborate what Dr. Mulwa has claimed before this House? Thank you.
Senator Tom Ojenda.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, my question is different. I want to ask the previous, the advocate who spoke or presented the Kenya Kwanza agreement, my learned friend, to clarify a few issues. Mr. Yes, Council, can you clarify from the agreement, the Kenya Kwanza agreement, whether there are any shares for the following counties? Please note this. This is important. Kisumu County, Siaya County, Migori County, Homa Bay County, Kitui County, Mombasa County, Vihiga County, Mandera County, Marsabit County, Trans Nzoia, West Pokot, Lamu, and Nairobi County. I just want to know whether, and this is important because the legal crinkum crankum, the twists and turns in this is that you will then interpret, Council, whether the agreement violates Article 210(2)(b) of the Constitution, inclusivity, diversity, discrimination, and the obligation of the President under Article 131. Lastly, Council, please just tell us whether, in your view, the relationship between the Deputy President and the President, because you played the two clips under Kenya Kwanza, has broken down irretrievably. That will help us. Thank you.
Senator Essie Okanyure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would wish to seek more information from Mr. Abdi on was it in order for the bid bond document to be released while there was an ongoing investigation? And secondly, did EACC clear Madam Terry Ramadan as the ambassador? Thank you.
Senator Enoch Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a few things to clarify from EACC. One, did you find it necessary to record a statement from Crystal and Shobika in that probe? Because they had been mentioned. Were they entities of interest in the investigation? Secondly, has Shobika ever done any business with KEMSA or with Global Fund before the case on record? In your own investigations, did you find that? In your letter, I see you have recommended administrative action against the CEO, the acting director of procurement, and 2 procurement officers. I see no recommendation of any action, not necessarily by KEMSA, against Crystal or against Shobika. And I think that's in line with your own recommendation that in this case on record, there was no public funds lost, and eventually the the bid was returned. So in your own investigation, what is at issue here? I thank you.
Senator Mofaya.
I don't know whether this, Honorable Speaker, I want to know from the witness from the EACC. I've listened to his evidence, and I would want to know, on behalf of the whole House, whether the contract for mosquito nets, which was drawn out of interference, because I have captured those confessions from him. So my question is, Honorable Speaker, can he connect the company associated with the DP with the withdrawal of that contract? Number two, Honorable Speaker, I have also listened to Mr. Murwa, Dr. Murwa. One would want to know, is it normal for ordinary CEO to come and camp in your office for 5 hours?
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question to the witness is that we've been told by Dr. Mulwa that the people of Kenya lost money, they lost time, they lost the number of nets they were going to get, and services to people. Now, does EACC end at just saying you recommend administrative action? Now, who takes responsibility for the loss of all of that the people of Kenya did? And what responsibility is taken in respect of tinkering with the procurement in order to give it to the wrong person for it to be found not to have been correct? Honorable Speaker, one more question to Council. Now that Professor Ojenda has asked, I want to take opportunity to ask Council Macharia, you referred to the Political Parties Act, Schedule 3, as the instrument with which you allege that the shareholding, in your view, that was being spoken about is contained in the coalition government of Kenya Kwanza. Can you give us the exact provisions of Schedule 3 of the Political Parties Act that says that shareholding can be done on development projects in Kenya?
Senator Mugo. Senator Mugo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Excellency Deputy President's Counsel as to whether the Deputy President, in his own conscience, realized that this shareholding narrative is really going negative, and what did he do about it? Or he just went all the way up to where things are now without he himself realizing that it is going the wrong way?
Senator Jonyut.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very briefly, just want to ask the witness, Mr. Abdi. He has stated that as per their investigation, EACC, that the closing date was moved for this tender, particular tender, was moved from the 23rd of February 2023 to 10th of March in order for the process to favor Shobika, or whose local agent was Christo. Can you clarify, Mr. Abdi, whether this extension of the tender period was due to the late delivery of bid bond, because you said that the tender was also attached to a bid bond that was late? Was the reason the late delivery of the bid bond, or the specifications of the long-lasting net from Synergist, peronel, something like that, but side to pyrethrin? Exactly what was the reason? Was it late delivery of bid bond or a specification? Number two, Mr. Abdi, you have indicated that the authority did not prefer any charges against the officers of KEMSA and the PS herself. Is that the right thing that EACC was supposed to do, or it should have preferred charges against these errant, in quotes, officers? And finally, why were the companies that were eventually given the tender or awarded the tender by Global FAD, why had they initially been disqualified by KEMSA? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Lelegwe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would like to seek clarifications from the Advocate of the National Assembly in reference to Ground 11, which pertains to gross misconduct bullying. You have alleged that that His Excellency, the Deputy President, exerted undue pressure on officials of Kenya Medical Supplies Agency in order to secure a tender for supply of mosquito nets to Crystal Limited, a company purportedly associated with him. Now, upon reviewing the documentation provided, I have noted that 17 companies submitted bids for this tender, yet it was ultimately not awarded to any of them. Given these findings, may I inquire from you whether it will be correct to assert that this particular ground lacks sufficient substantiation, considering that no award was made in respect to the tender in question? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chimera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Three quick issues to the witness. I wish to refer the witness to page 17 of his own document. And I know he is a very serious investigator, Speaker, but the document on page 17, dated 16th July 2014, as tabled here, is so naked and so casual, and it's purportedly coming from the Pest Control and Products Board. There is no letterhead as to confirm the authenticity of this document, Mr. Speaker. I don't know how the witness intends to allow the Senate to authenticate this document. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, is on his allegation on the conflict of interest on the part of the DP insofar as this tender is concerned. Is it your contention that the mere fact Crystal Kenya Limited is the local agent of one of the bidders in this tender, then that will suffice to be conflict of interest enough on the part of the DP, because the owner of that company assigns to the DP? And lastly, Mr. Speaker, the witness has been cross-examined by my learned colleague, counsel for the DP, largely on contents of the Senate Standing Committee on Health report, as opposed to his own documents. Do you want it to go on record that you want to rely on that report as your evidence in chief, or should the Senate rely on your documents as tabled under volume 8A of your own documents? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Shakil Abdallah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to Mr. Abdi. How many more charges against the deputy are before the EACC apart from the KEMSA? Thank you.
Senator Aaron Cheriot.
Mr. Speaker, just a quick question to Abdi of EACC. This issue of the bid bond, Mr. Speaker, listening to the former acting CEO, there's something curious about it which I want Abdi to either confirm or help us understand. That there was something peculiar. You know, Mr. Speaker, when you hear about pagination, if you know anything about tenders, you know for a fact that if there's an issue on pagination, either it is not just an issue of forgetting to page or number the pages, Mr. Speaker, but that document may either have been added later on after the tendering process was concluded, or, Mr. Speaker, it was defective. What was the real issue, according to their investigation, with regards to the bid bond that was submitted by this specific company? Secondly, Mr. Speaker, what in his assessment will he say is a reading of the donor community when you have such important programs interfered with, as such that the donor communities themselves end up cancelling such important programs? And what are they recommending? Finally, Mr. Speaker, is to Advocate Ndegwa Njiru. He asked the witness earlier which of the report would he, that this House believes, that of the Senate or of the EACC. I'd wish to pose the same question to him. I thank you.
Senator Murango.
Asante sana mstahiki Spika. Swali langu litaenda kwa Bwana Abdi. Kwa sababu anayehukumiwa hapa ni naibu wa rais, tungetaka kujua kwamba kwa sababu mlifanya uchunguzi, ni kesi ngapi ama kuna kesi yote ambayo EACC imepeleka mahakamani ili naibu wa rais aweze kuhukumiwa? Jambo la pili, wakati kulikuwa naibu wa rais alikuwa anachunguzwa katika bunge la kitaifa, kuna ushahidi wote ambao wewe uliwasilisha katika bunge la kitaifa? Na kama hukuwasilisha, kwa nini umeamua kuwasilisha tu nyumba la seneti na sio bunge la kitaifa? Na ya mwisho, katika zabuni ambayo ilikuwa ni ya viandarua vya mbu ambayo naibu wa rais anasemekana alihusika nayo, tungetaka tujue ya kwamba kwa sababu ile zabuni ilikuwa imeghairiwa na KEMSA, na kwa hivyo dhamana ya zabuni ambayo ni bid bond kwa kimombo ilikuwa inafaa kurudishwa, tungetaka tujue kama hiyo dhamana ya zabuni ilirudishwa ama iliitishwa, ingekuwa inasaidia naibu wa rais na nini, ama kungekuwa na manufaa gani ya kurudisha dhamana ya zabuni kama ulivyorudisha zingine 17? Hiyo ndio ningetaka kujua. Asante sana Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mogene.
Yes, Bwana Abdi, on this issue of irregular procurement of malaria nets with KEMSA, you know, you have given us documents that basically point to some recommendation for administrative action to be taken against a number of officers. But you know, what is of our concern today is companies associated with the DP. Can you tell us anything that you found irregular around the subject matter that concerns us this, is it afternoon, this afternoon? That is the companies associated with the deputy president, Bwana acting deputy CEO. Thank you.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are lucky that the EACC is here with us. And there are serious allegations that have been raised that require investigations. Could the CEO, the deputy, confirm if indeed there are investigations taking place on your own motion on the following issues? One, on the activities of this intricate web of companies by the Deputy President, on the issue of the disinheritance of the orphans and wife of his late brother, His Excellency Nderitu Gachagua. 3, on the alleged insubordination of the President. And finally, if there are investigations on the role that His Excellency the Deputy President played in the infamous Gen Z uprising that occurred in June. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cheranke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 3 quick questions. Like an eye of a military marksman. 1, I need clarification on Section 14 on cultural gifts. Especially some of us, when in our community, when we respect you, we give you cows. does it qualify within the meaning of Section 14? Number two, I've seen administration action against KEMSA officials and ministry officials and KEMSA. Since you recommended administrative action, have you gotten feedback from KEMSA? And number two, did you recommend any action against companies? And finally, are there any active investigations by EACC against the person of Rigathi Gachagua or against the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mutinda Tabitha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is to the Council for the National Assembly. You have presented before this House two witnesses, Mr. Abdi and the previous one, Dr. Mulwa. Dr. Mulwa before this House stated that there was no loss in regards to this procurement process. Mr. Abdi's report indicates very clearly that there was no loss of public funds. Would you tell this House, between your two witnesses, who is telling the truth, who is not telling us the truth? Secondly, EACC, as far as Crystal Limited is concerned, have you established any evidence that shows that the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya benefits directly or indirectly from this particular company? And lastly, my colleague asked about the former CEO, Ramadan. You had recommended action to be taken. In your report also, you indicate that she violated Article 10. Does it end there, Mr. Abdi? Because she's now working in a different capacity. What action are you supposed to take, or do you intend to take? Do you do recommendations and not adhere to them? What's the conclusion as far as this kind of reports are concerned from your office? Mr. Speaker, I ask this because Kenyans sometimes say that the Senate does not do oversight. We do not really take action, but we recommend. And this is now the situation that we find ourselves in, that your recommendations that
Senator Montet Batuli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would wish to ask the CEO, what is EAC planning to, is EAC planning to press charges on any of these companies that you say that you've investigated and found that they had interfered either through their agents with this particular tender? And if not, are you planning to do it, and when are you planning to do it?
Senator Veronica.
Just a quick clarification. Can you confirm or clarify whether these investigations have been closed by EACC in respect of this procurement at KEMSA, and whether there are any further persons of interest whom you have sanctioned or issued any notices of prosecution or anything of that sort beyond the letters that are attached to the affidavit? And in the course of your investigation, did you bother to find out what was the content of the phone calls that the acting CEO of KEMSA said was used to intimidate or cause pressure to him? Did you investigate the contents of that phone call?
Witness, you may now proceed to respond. Proceed, witness, to respond. Proceed to respond, witness. Order, honorable senators. If you have noticed, Honorable Seki, Honorable Seki, Honorable Seki, this hearing will terminate beyond midnight today. Let the witness respond to the queries that have been sought. Thereafter, we'll go for another round. Is there any problem? Honorable Seki, you're out of order. You're out of order. And I'm asking you to leave the chamber immediately. You cannot. You cannot direct the chair on what to do. Honorable Seki, unless you apologize, I'm going to throw you out of the chamber. You cannot say the chair is biased. If you've noticed, we've been going on lots. One lot, the witness answers, then I go for another lot. Honorable Seki, unless you apologize, I rule you out of order, and I'm going to throw you out. Proceed. You either apologize or I throw you out. Honorable Seki, you apologize or I throw you out.
You know, you as a speaker, I have come to a desk.
The speaker.
I have a representation of Kajiado people. I have a right to speak in this assembly.
Just
you should
like
not
another senator.
seems to be biased.
Honorable Seki, you either apologize or I'm going to rule you out of order and I'm going to throw you out.
You know, I've never stood on this.
Just apologize.
Order, honorable senators, order.
Let me just apologize.
Of course, but that's how. Honorable Seki, I have not heard the apology. Honorable Seki, you either proceed to apologize to the chair or you exit the chamber. Proceed. The floor is yours, Honorable Seki.
I apologize.
Take your seat. Now, Honorable Seki, Honorable Chute, and Honorable Omtata, you're totally out of order, pursuant to Standing Order 121, and I'm cautioning you. The first caution for the day. Honorable Chute, every senator here is elected to represent their people. If you notice from yesterday, we are going with lots. There is no senator who is more important than the other. Proceed, witness.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I may not have captured the exact names of the honorable senators, but I will deal with the questions as they were asked. So the first question was to do with when did the other companies get back their documents and the dates the companies got their documents. I'm not sure of the exact date when these documents were returned, but procedurally, we only focus mainly on the company that we are investigating either for procurement irregularities or certain issues. Like, for example, in this particular case, Shobika was the special company that we were looking at, and that was the reason why that particular one was identified, because the bid document actually had challenges, as I had indicated in my evidence in chief. Then we come to Honorable Mungatana, issues of gifts and the cows. Now, as I had indicated, gifts that are of value of more than 20,000 shillings are supposed to be handed in and declared by all public officers, including state officers. For this specific matter, we have not investigated as to the existence of the material, cows that are in this particular issue. But if indeed cows have been donated to any public officer, those donations are supposed to be donated to the state. And the officer within 48 hours is supposed to hand over that donation to the institution that employs him. So that is my take on that. Then we have the issue of extension of time for the bid bond. Now, as I had indicated previously, the closing date for this particular tender was supposed to be on 23rd February. Bid bonds are supposed to be attached, or they're supposed to be part of the bid document, the tender document. In this particular case, the bid bond was hand-delivered to the CEO in her office when the tender documents were already inserted in the respective tender boxes. So for that reason, extension had to be found in order to have that document be part of the tender document of that particular company, which is Shobika. So that led to the extension, and that was instigated by the permanent secretary, who did a letter, which is in our documents, directing the CEO of KEMSA to extend the date of closure of the tender from 23rd February to 10th March. Now, that is the issue which made the bid bond, the date of extension to be extended, the date of closure to be extended. Now, let me come to investigations by various bodies created by the Constitution. Now, investigations will either be in terms of course, each institution has its own mandate as far as the Constitution or the legislation or the statute that created it is concerned. Now, when it comes to criminal investigation, and specifically issues to do with leadership and integrity, issues to do with corruption, that responsibility lies with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Now, other institutions, other constitutional bodies can do their own investigation, but they will if, for example, they are recommending for criminal charges, those recommendations have to be made to the respective institution that is mandated to charge people or to investigate criminal cases, like the DCI or the EACC. So it depends on the mandate of the institution and what is the focus of that particular investigation. But for example, if it is the PPDA, the Public Procurement and Disposal Authority, they do not have powers to charge people in court, or rather to recommend to the DPP to have people charged in court. What do? They have to do a recommendation to either the DCI or to the EACC to investigate the criminality of that particular issue. So I just want to indicate that it depends on the institution and the mandate of that institution. But when it comes to criminal investigations, there are specific institutions that are mandated to conduct criminal investigations. Issues to do with the declaration of gifts, I think that one I addressed in my earlier submission, that gifts that are more than 20,000 are declarable, and they have to be entered in the registers. And after the end of every financial year, the institution has to actually declare to the EACC of the existence of that gift. Now, the issue of what was our finding or our conclusion when you look at the whole matter and our perception, or rather, what would be our conclusion that we reached. Now, when you look at this particular tender, first, it is an international tender that was floated as an open tender to international companies. Companies bidded, But there is a specific company that has a local agent here, which is Shobika, that did not conform to certain procurement requirements as per the tender document. Because when tenders are floated, that tender has got specific instructions or directions to the people who are bidding. If, for example, you are supposed to do, if you are supposed to do pagination, it has to be indicated there. If you have to do, for example, in ink, it has to be there. So anything that goes outside what was provided for in the tender document is actually considered as irregular. And of course, the disqualification should apply. So this one, it was a tender that was badly handled, and I wouldn't want to indicate why it was handled that way, but from the look of it, there must have been some pressure somewhere. That is my own view as an investigator, because when you see procurement officers deliberately going out of the requirements, because they know the law, there are only two conclusions that you can make. One, they were bribed. Two, there was an influence that was coming from other quarters. Mainly, those are the two reasons from our experience. So that is my conclusion. I wouldn't want to delve into the conclusion of Dr. Mulwa, because he gave evidence before this House, Honorable House, and his evidence is there. Now, the issue of Terry Ramadan and her status, I think ours was, and whether we actually received feedback. As seen in our documents, we did a letter to the, on Terry Ramadan, let me refer to the documents. We did to the chairman, the chairperson of the board of directors of KEMSA. And we gave him the reasons why we think, or it was our view, that action should be taken, disciplinary action should be taken against this particular officer. As to why she's still in the public service, I wouldn't want to go there, because our responsibility, when it comes to administrative action, we tell the institution to take the disciplinary action.
Order, Senator Newton.
We do not have the powers
Senator
to compel,
Fernandez, take your seat.
For example, the PS, sorry.
Proceed, Abdi.
Thank you.
Mr. Abdi.
So we do not have the powers to compel the chairperson of, we don't have the compellence powers as far as administrative action is concerned. So I want to leave that for the honorable members to decide what to do with that. So I move on. Then the issue of reading of the donor community and what our view is. You know, if you may allow me, Honorable Speaker and the members, the medical, or rather the health sector, has faced serious challenges of corruption throughout this period. Throughout the period that I remember working at the EACC, it is an area where a lot of donors are actually almost giving up in supporting our programs. And that has a serious repercussion. Because first, let's understand.
Mheshimiwa Speaker, in the past, with tremendous respect, with all the other witnesses, you have been indicating how much time they have to respond. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and my good friend here, the witness, you did not indicate how much time this honorable House is giving him to respond.
Thank you so much, Senior Counsel. That was courtesy of my good friend, Senator Seki. Now, witness, ordinarily we've been given 10 minutes to respond to clarifications sought and questions. So far, you have done 4 minutes and 13 seconds. You have 5 minutes and 47 seconds to conclude.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. So that one I've dealt with. So the issue was that was also raised is which report do we stand by? As ESCC, we did an investigation and we submitted our report, the findings of the report to this committee, to this Honorable House, and that is the report we will always stand by and defend. The other issue that was raised was whether we had any case that we have investigated against the DPP and whether we have proposed charges or anything like that. That is, we have not investigated the Deputy President, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua. We have not investigated him for any criminal matter in the past. That is our position. Now, there was also the National Assembly hearing. Why we did not attend the National Assembly hearing and now we are attending the Senate. We were not invited to the first hearing. Yesterday, I was served with a summons of this House, and we are simply responding to that summons. As to why we were not invited in the other one, that I don't know, and we only respond to the summons that were issued. So then, Senator Omugeni, the companies associated with the DP, we've not investigated any company that is associated with the Deputy President so far, and that is our position. Then, Honorable Senator for Kakamega County, activities that are intricate web of suspected to be corruption. On all the items, Honorable Senator, that you have told us whether we have investigated, I think there are 5. We have not, because a report has not been made to us, and we should not only wait for a report. We also have the powers to investigate on our own motion, but it is only after we analyze the reports as to whether they fit in within our mandate. Like, for example, if you deal with issues of inheritance, unless there's a criminal aspect on the inheritance bit, inheritance usually will be handled as a civil matter. And issues to do with intimidation, if the CEO of KEMSA had reported to us that he was actually intimidated by a state officer, we would go into it. Of course, you understand, all of us understand, how difficult it would be to open an investigation of that, that magnitude. But no complaint has been made to us. On the Gen Z uprising, also, we have no report. We know it happened, but as to the corruption bit of it, we do not have facts.
2 minutes to go.
Okay, thank you. So, gifts, I think I mentioned, I talked about it. I talked about them very clearly. Issues to do with whether we want to press charges against companies associated with the DP. We have not investigated. We can only recommend charges after investigation to the Director of Public Prosecution. That is our mandate. And the other one, of course, is intimidation by the CEO of KEMSA. I think I had addressed that one. Then finally is whether we want to prefer more charges or more sanctions against the persons involved, and on this matter, especially on criminal culpability. That the issue of criminal culpability is still open, and we will be inviting some people probably in the near future, but as of now, we dealt with the issues of administrative action against the individuals involved. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. If I may have not addressed 1 or 2 questions, it's
very well. Now we move to the second round. Senator Mtata.
Honorable Speaker, was there any clarification for us to respond to some questions that have been put to us?
Just listen to this law so that you...
Sugar is running a bit low. There are many questions.
It's running low to everybody.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Speaker, sir, to the witness from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, I would like to ask whether the Kenya Kwanza coalition document is unconstitutional and therefore null and void to the extent that its formula for sharing executive power violates Articles 10, 27, 129, 130, and 131 of the Constitution. Number two, if that's the case, who is to blame for approving the unconstitutional coalition agreement that resulted in forming a government? Number three, can you point this Senate to any hard evidence of criminal conduct which you have unearthed in your investigations against the Deputy President? And can you distinguish whether there's a circumstance where the Deputy President, or even me as a senator, can walk into a place and be given a gift that I don't have to declare, irrespective of the amount of the gift, because I engage officially and privately. So is there a situation whereby I can be given a gift of whatever magnitude that I don't have to declare? Thank you.
Senator Chute.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me first of all thank Bwana Abdi for many years' service he has given to this country, and we highly respect him. I want to refer Abdi to ground number 11 and also to his documents, page 7. Ground number 11 says, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua bullied Kenya Medical Supplies Agency officials into awarding a tender for supply of mosquito nets to Crystal Limited. And in your letter on page 7, the Commission, let me read, the Commission is of the opinion that the conduct of the CEO, Terry Ramadhani, amounts to violations of leadership and integrity act, particularly section 10 and 11. Mr. Abdi, today, as we speak, Terry Ramadhani is a deputy ambassador in India. And Mr. Mutuse, Honorable Mutuse, wants this house to get rid of the deputy president on the account of bullying somebody. Can you tell Kenyans, 50 million Kenyans today, as you stand there, do you want this house to impeach the president if you have already recommended some culprits to be given administrative, action, and then you want us to impeach the president?
Senator Kamau. Githuku.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to ask a question to the Deputy Chief Executive Officer. In the course of your investigation, is there anywhere that you have identified that the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, who you want impeached, influenced any tender award? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
And the senator was elected by the people of Kajiado, Senator Seki.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question goes to, or clarification goes to Abdi Mohammed. Mohammed, we have realized that there is a report from the ACC and a report from the Committee of Health of the Senate in regards to the, this issue of mosquito nets. I want to confirm that the contract was cancelled and the funds were not lost. I want you to demonstrate the role of this agent by the name Crystal Kenya Limited in relations to the Deputy President's office and more so Rigathi Gachagua. Thank you very much.
Senator Miraj? Okay, if you don't have any question, then log out. You may now proceed, and thereafter we'll have an opportunity for the counsel for the Deputy President to respond to the clarification sought.
Thank
5
you.
minutes.
Thank
Abdi,
you,
have 5 minutes.
Honorable Speaker. In fact, I'll take less than 5 minutes. Senator Omutata, I think he raised the issue of whether the agreement of the Kenya Kwanza document or Kenya Kwanza government document is unconstitutional. I think that one is only the courts that can actually find whether that document is unconstitutional or not. It's not within my ability or powers, or rather to comment about the constitutionality or otherwise, and whether the document is null and void, and whether it contravenes certain articles of the Constitution. The second one was who is to blame for drawing unconstitutional agreements or documents. I think that is also something that can be tried in court in my view. If anybody suspects whether this document is constitutional or not, I think the best thing to do is to try it in our courts, and they will, of course, give directions on what can be done. Now, the other one was whether we have investigated any criminal conduct against the DP. I think I had indicated clearly that we have not investigated the Deputy President for any criminal culpability or any criminal case as far as EACC is concerned. Senator Chute, thank you very much for the compliment. I appreciate. Now, the issue of bullying of KEMSA officers or staff, I think that came from the CEO himself, and he gave evidence in this House that will be considered by the House, whether it is something that can stand the test or not. As for Terry Ramadan, we did our bit in terms of recommending this lady to be disciplinary action be taken against her for her role in this particular procurement. But because I indicated we don't have the compellence powers to enforce disciplinary or administrative action, I leave it at that. And whether our recommendation is for the impeachment of the DP, ours was to respond to the summons that was given to us by this Honorable House. It is for the House to do, that is their job. I wouldn't want to go there. We never recommended, I don't want to go there. Then whether there was anywhere where the DP influenced any tender. No, we do not have that, and we never submitted that. All that we said is what I'm going to say in the next response, which was raised by the Honorable Senator for Kajiado County, about the role of Crystal Kenya Limited and the connection between that company and the Honorable Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. From the documents that we have and which we supplied, it is clear that this company, the directors are two sons of the Deputy President. Each one of them owns 200 shares. They are the only directors of that particular company. And that is the nexus between the Deputy President, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, and that particular company. And that is our response as of now. So, Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. That's it.
Counsel for the Deputy President, we'll give you 10 minutes, starting now.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I'll share my minutes with my colleague Ndegonjiro. My questions are limited to the issue of the shareholder agreements. I'll be quick. The questions were asked by my learned senior and colleague and friend, Professor Ojenda, Catherine Muma, and Senator Omtata. I'll begin with the questions by my learned senior, Mr. Ojenda, and I'll begin with the second question he asked. He asked, is the relationship between the President and the Deputy President irretrievably broken? That's not a legal question, but in my experience as a Kenyan, there is no such thing as an irretrievably broken political relationship. Members of Jubilee, a party I served as an advocate for, woke up in March 2018 to find their leader shaking hands with his opponent at Harambee House, and they subsequently found a way to work. A few months ago, the President and the Honorable former Prime Minister have found a way to work. There's no such thing as an irretrievable political relationship. Secondly, leadership constitutionally is not so much about how you feel. It is about your duty and your responsibility constitutionally. Your feelings must take a back seat to your duty to the people of Kenya. Secondly, I was asked about the counties. Now, when you look at these shareholder agreements, and again, if members will go with me to page 418, where you find the shareholder agreement between ANC, Ford Kenya, and UDA. Sorry? Oh, volume, sorry. I don't know how to increase the volume.
Council, sorry, Council. Members, I'm getting a bit lost when you say UNDA. UNDA, if spelling in Swahili is UNDA.
No, UDA, sorry, I come from Kenya.
United Democratic Alliance. If you use maybe the you first make clear.
I'm sorry.
That it is United Democratic Alliance.
Yes, I'm sorry. We use acronyms, I'm sorry. It's the United Democratic Alliance Party. The full name of Amani is Amani National Congress Party, and the full name for Ford Kenya is Ford Kenya Party. So their agreement at page 429, you will note, Professor Ojenda, it does not talk about counties. The agreements seem to have been structured in regions. It talked about region. Now, I don't know what they meant by those regions, but what I can tell you is that at paragraph 20...
Also, I will allow Mr. Abdi to have a seat somewhere as you conclude.
Yes, as I said, Honorable Senator for Kisumu, at page 429, which would be paragraph 20, subparagraph O. That's the first proviso there was. Further terms, parameters, and details of the sharing of positions of responsibility in the national government pursuant to this article shall be contained in a separate schedule to this agreement, which schedule shall be negotiated and executed before the date of the general election scheduled on 9th August 2022. So this was not a final agreement. My understanding is that there were further schedules. I don't know what those schedules said. They are not available at the Register of Political Parties. They may very well have included all the counties you asked for. Maybe Kisumu was in the subsequent schedule, I don't know. Secondly, the drafters of this, as I've said, were careful to stay within the confines of the Constitution, because at paragraph 22, subparagraph G, this is what they said. Notwithstanding the content of this article, the founding member parties hereby commit to make any adjustments that may be necessary to accommodate the development priorities of other parts of the country, to ensure equitable distribution of Kenya's national resources and wealth for the benefit of every citizen and every part of Kenya. So there was a proviso to ensure that the document was constitutional. And perhaps while I'm on that issue as well, I might as well answer my good friend on Senator Mtata's question. I am not yet mercifully a judge. I cannot say whether the Kenya Kwanza coalition is unconstitutional. Somebody will have to move the court for that determination to be made. But what I did say was that in 2005, I had the privilege in participating in a case involving the MOU for NAC. And that one was struck down because the law had no underpinning making room for it. And which brings me to the question raised by Senator Catherine Muma, which is the political parties section. There's actually not one, there's several. If you would go to Schedule 3, subparagraph C, B, D, and E. Let me read them out for you. So B deals with the policies and objectives of the coalition. That's B. D deals with organizational structure and management of the coalition, including county structures and systems and county government bodies, which you'll also find in these agreements. And then C, the overall structure of the coalition. And then E, the criteria or formula for sharing of positions in the coalition. That's what it says. Positions in the coalition structure, roles, and responsibilities within the coalition. So that's what it says. So most political coalitions have interpreted that to mean, and it's been healthy thus far. I think it's helped, in my view, this country become a bit more stable and united. And I think I've answered all those questions that had to do with the question of the shareholder agreements. Unless members had any clarification, I rest.
Thank you, Council, for DP. Council Ndegwa, you have something to pick, or do we conclude it at that?
Specific questions and clarifications. Noting at the mood of the House, perhaps I can indulge the House. I respond the same after lunchtime.
No. After lunch, we are going straight to your main witness.
Very well, Mr. Speaker, sir.
So what we can do, Council Ndegwa, allow me to invoke Standing Order 34.2A for the convenience of the House to add 5 minutes. So the House will rise at 1:05 instead of 1.
I am well guided by your wisdom.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, sir, there were 2 questions for the National Assembly side to respond.
Okay,
2 questions.
then let's do this. Let's do this. Instead of the House rising at 1:05, we will rise at 1:15. So, Council Ndegwa, you'll take your 5 minutes, and then the rest shall be given to the Council for the National Assembly.
I am well guided, Mr.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the witness is asking if he can leave the
Absolutely. He's discharged.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Speaker, sir. I was asked to clarify by Senator Joyce Carrill why I am dealing with the report from the Senate and what am I driving at. The report to the Senate is intended to indicate that none of the participants in that tendering process ever benefited from that particular process. All the 17 companies, none of them benefited, and that as a result or as a consequence of the failure to proceed to the next levels, the country did not lose even a single cent. A question was put to me why I am looking at the submissions by various parties and not going to the observations and the recommendations by the Senate. And just like a skillful legal surgeon, I have been able to point out various findings, submissions. For example, the submissions finding themselves at page 222, paragraph 107 and 106, 107 and 109 find themselves at the recommendation, at the observation of the Senate at page 271. So there is serious correlation between my findings as submitted by various parties who appeared before the Senate and the observations made by the Senate. So I dealt largely on what the Senate found as opposed to what the Senate had during the proceedings. Number two, Mr. Speaker, sir, clarification was sought as to why the bid failed. And although that will be dealt with at length, permit me to draw the attention of the Assembly to page 108 of the volume 3 of the Deputy President's Body of Documents. You'll find a letter from KEMSA dated the 5th May 2023, being a notification to Shobika Impex Private Limited. And it reads, the reference is made to the above tender and advised that the tender was unsuccessful due to the following reasons. 1, tender security was not paginated. Number 2, please plan to collect your bid security from the procurement office immediately. It may be of interest to note the date when this letter is being generated is the 5th of May. It also be of interest to note when the alleged bullying and intimidation occurred. This letter precedes the alleged bullying, alleged intimidation. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, sir, this letter is voluntarily being issued and being generated by KEMSA themselves at their own intuition, as opposed to being triggered by any external officer, in this case, the person of the Deputy President. In their own volition, KEMSA triggers and invites Shobika to come and collect their bids, and on witness, Mr. Speaker, sir, the witness confirmed that this is always the end of a failed bid. Finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, permit me to draw the attention of the Assembly to the matter in issue. That is at page 36 of the volume 1 of the impeachment motion. The matter in issue that is subject for interrogation, Mr. Speaker,
45 seconds.
As I pen off, is not whether the tenders were responsive, whether the country lost any money, whether investigations were done, whether there was conflict of interest, whether there were gifts that accrued therefrom. The question in issue is, did the person of the Deputy President bully the officer? Was there evidence? So let us not lose ground or focus on the ground on the matter in issue, so that we focus and we put the train on rail. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Counsel for the National Assembly, take us to the rise of the House.
Mr. Speaker, sir, how many minutes? 10? Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I am here to respond on behalf of the National Assembly on only 2 questions. Mr. Speaker, sir, listening to the Deputy President's side, I believe they have misunderstood the nature and context of ground number 11. And there was a question by the Senator whether we have substantiated ground number 11 on bullying of KEMSA officials. Secondly, there was a question also on whether there was loss of public funds in this tendering process. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to answer the first question by mentioning that the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya is a high-ranking state official. The Republic of Kenya, the polity of the Republic of Kenya is based on certain fundamental national values and principles of governance. In addition, there are provisions on leadership and integrity. If you look at the provisions of Article 75, starting with 73, then you conclude with 75. There is an express prohibition on conflict of interest when it comes to all state offices. Now, to contextualize that question, you have to look at the purpose of impeachment. The Deputy President, being a high-ranking state officer, means that there is a constitutional process for bringing him into account to question his conduct. And that is why you have this process of impeachment. Impeachment is about political responsibility. It's about governance. Impeachment is not about criminal culpability. It's not about gathering evidence for purpose of taking him to court. It's about bringing him to account on what he has done from a political standpoint, and that issue of the distinction of criminal processes from impeachment has been clarified by the Supreme Court of Kenya. The Supreme Court of Kenya, in the case of Mike Sonko, was expressed clear and unequivocal that impeachment is about those values, ethos in Article 10 and the provisions of leadership and integrity in Chapter 6. Now, if you look at the way ground number 11 has been coached, ground number 11, Mr. Speaker, sir, ground number 11 talks about gross misconduct. Now, the Supreme Court of Kenya has interpreted what amounts to gross violation, which in context then means gross misconduct. And the conclusion is that when you violate these core values in Article 10 and the provisions of leadership and integrity, then you are guilty of gross misconduct. You are guilty also of gross violation of the Constitution. Sometimes you are guilty of abuse of office. So to put it in context, if you look at that charge that we have put in ground number 11, it talks about bullying of KEMSA officials. Now, that fact of bullying, and we have been more specific. If you look at the charge, we have mentioned the specific clause of legislation where the act of bullying has been prohibited. And this provision, if you look at the provisions of the Leadership and Integrity Act, the provisions of the Leadership and Integrity Act specifically prohibit bullying of bullying by state officials. And in that context, then you can see that in terms of the allegation that we are making and the evidence which has been submitted before this House, especially that call which was made by the Deputy President. The call was made by the Deputy President to a KEMSA official. Why would the Deputy President be pushing the interests of a commercial, the commercial interests of a private company? That is crystal clear when you look at his own admission in his response to this allegation. The Deputy President has admitted that he lent the sum of Kenya shillings 200 million to Crystal Company to acquire some hotel in Nyeri. This is the same company which the Deputy President is making a call to KEMSA to consider. And a senior KEMSA official, in this case the managing director, goes to EACC in a tender process.
Mr. Speaker, I was just wondering which clarification my learned colleague is responding to, because the time for submission is in the evening.
Yes, Counsel from the National Assembly.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, so I'm just concluding that it's an impeachable offense to make the link.
Very well, now conclude.
Yeah, so Mr. Speaker, sir, if you look at then the evidence which has been submitted by Dr. Mulwa, that he received a call from the deputy president, who is a high-ranking state official, to go to EACC, and then he went to EACC to collect evidence, which EACC had gathered for purposes of submitting that tender to the deputy president or his contact, in this case, his son. Then what we are saying is that that act by the deputy president then constitutes a violation of the provisions of the Leadership and Integrity Act, specifically Section 34 of the Leadership and Integrity Act, and that amounts to bullying. And to that extent, we are submitting that charge has indeed been substantiated in all its four corners. On the second question, and here again, it appears there is a misnomer. To prove an economic crime, you don't need to prove that there was loss of funds. An economic crime in this case occurs when a sitting deputy president, in a tendering process, he makes a call, which the recipient then interprets in a different way, perhaps to influence the tendering process, or perhaps to, for certain decisions to be made in favor of that person. And the person who is making the call is a sitting deputy president. That is why then the provisions of the Constitution prohibit
Mr.
conflict
Speaker,
of interest.
sir, if you may, I think my learned friend has enjoyed a lot of latitude in respect to responding to issues that were not sought for clarification. I was taking note of all the issues that were sought. And the issue that Council is responding to are not among those that were sought. And if they were, then you need to indicate from which particular senator did seek that.
Council for National Assembly, reserve other matters for submission.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, so I'm responding to the question of whether there was loss of funds.
That was not sought for
it
clarification.
It was sought by a senator. And,
it was sought.
It was sought.
It was sought.
Yeah.
1 minute.
Yeah. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, in this case, evidence has been led. If you look at it from one perspective, evidence has been led by Dr. Mulwa that indeed there was a delay in this procurement. Secondly, fewer nets were supplied. Thirdly, there was a question concerning the costs incurred in this tendering process. And the evidence was that 55 million shillings was incurred in this tendering process. It came from the mouth of Dr. Mulwa. So to that extent, you can see there was some loss. Whereas the tender was financed by the Global Fund, from our own perspective, we lost a lot, not only from a monetary perspective, but also from the other factors. What about Kenyans who did not access this malaria, these mosquito nets and were exposed to malaria? Is that not a loss which is non-monetary, and therefore, to that extent, one can make a conclusion that the conduct of the deputy president in this regard violates the provisions of Section 34 of the Leadership and Integrity Act? Mr. Speaker, so I end by stating that we have fully substantiated ground number 11, and it's one of those grounds where the evidence is clear, conspicuous, and there is a nexus to the deputy president himself through a phone call that he made to Dr. Mulwa, and he has admitted making that phone call. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, honorable senators, we are going to start with the deputy president at exactly 2:30. If you keep time, we're going to save time so that we don't have to ring the bell for a quorum. If we can start taking the evidence from the deputy president at 2:30, then we'll be able to manage our time going forward. You may now rise. Honorable senators, it is now 1:15, and having concluded the business for which I extended the hours of the sitting pursuant to Standing Order 34-2A, the Senate stands adjourned until today, 17th of October 2024 at 2:30 p.m.